Hello, welcome to Parents, Families, and Friends. I'm Paul Clifford, and this program is brought to you by parents, families, and friends of lesbians and gays. You can learn more about the organization by going to www.pflag.org. That's www.pflag.org. On this program, we examine issues that impact the lives of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered persons and those who love them. We talk about issues like the treatment of gay and lesbian kids in the schools, same-sex marriage, gays in the military, etc. On this program, we'll talk about how one church is stepping up to make the world a more hospitable place for gay and lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, and everybody else. That church is Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'd like you to meet Beth Schaefer, who is head of the Inclusiveness and Diversity Committee of the congregation, and Doug Marshall, who is heading up a new program called Safe Haven. Why don't we start with you, Beth? And first of all, we'd like to know a little bit more about Unitarian Universalism, because it's a minority religion in the United States. You know, there are not that many congregations. There's a very active congregation in Fremont, California, where you're from. Right. But a lot of people don't know what Unitarian Universalism is. How does it differ from other religions?
Well, Unitarian Universalism is rather unique in that rather than being founded and centered upon particular beliefs in a particular deity, it's founded upon 7 principles or values that all the members agree to share. As a result, there are people with a wide variety of beliefs about deities and how they approach those ideas about life in the afterlife. They're agnostics and atheists and theists of all stripes in a Unitarian Universalist congregation.
So an ex-Catholic like me would be welcome?
Absolutely. Anyone is welcomed.
So you can believe anything about a deity, but there's a common set of principles that everyone believes just by consensus. That's
right. That's right. We have a set of 7 principles. The first one, and the others perhaps all fall from that one, the first one is the inherent worth and dignity of every person is valued. And if I may just sort of run through the others so that you have a feel for the agreements or the covenants that Unitarian Universalists make. We also believe in the justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and finally the respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
So it does sound like most of those do flow from that first one, the sort of respect for every human being in the same way. Now,
exactly.
I was brought up Catholic, but I was taught that we had the truth and that we should be nice to other people, but they were morally inferior in some way. That is, the Protestants, if they had the opportunity to be Catholic but chose to be Protestant, they were going to hell.
Okay.
Protestants who maybe didn't have the opportunity to be Catholic and they were good people, well, they wouldn't go, right to heaven like I would, but they'd have to spend some time in purgatory first.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Yes, that differs quite a bit from the UU view.
Yes, but as a Catholic, we would have said we believe in in respecting all people still. Mm-hmm. But the UU view of respect for all people, I get, is a little bit different than that.
A little different, a little broader. Yes, we try to look at people from all different religious backgrounds, whether they've grown up in a particular faith, whether they're coming to spirituality at some point in their life for the first time and are beginning to start their spiritual search personally in any of those regards. So the inherent worth and dignity means a lot of different things to us. In the Inclusiveness and Diversity Committee that I chair, we try to focus on a number of groups. We look at equality in terms of racial, cultural, and ethnic diversity, and we also look at LGBTQ issues and how we can be completely welcoming, we hope, to all people who come in the door, and how we can guide the congregation as a whole into being welcoming and to being educated about these issues and being open to all people in a truly honest way, not just a superficial way.
So, so what kind of tangible things can the congregation do? And I called it a congregation because, you know, when talking with you earlier, I realized that there are some people in the congregation who don't like the word church because they come from churches that are more restrictive, but everybody seems to agree on the term congregation.
Right. We're officially called a congregation and not a church, although that word does definitely creep in.
What kind of tangible things can a congregation do to be more inclusive with respect to gay and lesbian people?
Well, a variety of things, and the Unitarian Universalist Association, the national organization, has actually developed some particular programs through which congregations can go through a number of classes, educational exercises, everything from the very beginning of who do you know that might be gay or lesbian, how do you feel about that person, what was your first experience with a gay or lesbian person, on up to holding a dance for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people. So our congregation went through that process to become officially designated a welcoming congregation by the UUA. Now we're kind of moving on to additional steps. We're doing everything from things like holding special movie nights and discussion nights to marching in the Pride Parade in San Francisco next week.
Wow.
And that'll be the first time that the congregation marches officially with the official congregation banner and all of that, although certainly members have taken part in the past years.
Right. Well, I know that's a big step because I know that even in PFLAG there are many members who come to meetings regularly and they're very supportive, and they really help other parents or family members who may come to the meeting understand their gay and lesbian family members. But being real public, getting out and marching in a parade behind a banner, that's a whole nother level of visibility.
Yes.
And I know it's a big step for any person. It must be a big step for the congregation too.
I think it really is, and I think it's kind of gained momentum as we've talked about it over the weeks as well. So we've got more people involved, and even those who can't be involved are very much behind it and are being good cheerleaders. And we've got a real variety of gay, lesbian, straight, variety of people taking part.
It sounds sort of like the mission of the congregation in part is very similar to PFLAG's mission: support, education, and advocacy. Supporting people on a one-to-one personal level, educating the congregation and the community at large on the issues, and then advocating for the basic civil rights of people.
That's right. That's right.
So that's the Inclusive Diversity Committee. And so you're outreaching to gay and lesbian people, and you're being very visible.
We're trying to do that.
Let me ask you, Doug, about this Safe Haven project that has started in the congregation. What's the goal of that, and what's the motivation behind it?
Well, it really springs from the first principle of inclusiveness and the right of every person to their own dignity and safety. And what got us started with Safe Haven was the rash of teen suicides last fall and the publicity from that. And I, for one, just reached a point where I couldn't go into our weekly services and have these discussions and not do something about it. And so we started a project called Safe Haven, which says that every child has a right to go to school without fear of being bullied. And part of that is related to, a large part of bullying is related to gay, lesbian issues, but some of it isn't. And so we're actually forming a community-based coalition to bring in not only PFLAG, other welcoming congregations and other individuals in the community so that we can make a difference.
So this is really a community outreach effort to help prevent bullying in the community and in the schools locally.
Right.
I know when I was in school, I was just swimming in anti-gay invective, I guess, from 3rd grade through high school. Maybe a couple dozen times a day I heard some kind of anti-gay slander. And there was a lot of bullying. But there was bullying not just, well, it wasn't specifically directed against gay people because there were no gay kids out. Absolutely not. But anti-gay invective was used to bully kids for a wide variety of reasons. And kids were also bullied, I mean, explicitly for other issues, for being overweight, for being underweight, for, you know, looking funny in any way, or not behaving the way other kids wanted them to behave.
Or being too smart, too stupid.
Yeah, and it seemed every kid was too something. So anyone could be a victim.
Yeah, and the thing about being safe in school is a real struggle. There are laws that the teachers have to follow, that the school districts have to follow, and then there are politics involved in the policies that are enforced in different school districts. And we have to always be vigilant and take action when, on many fronts, when we're trying to change behavior.
Of course, yeah. I know that among the school districts around me, they vary tremendously in their adherence to the law and their either proactiveness in addressing bullying issues or their ability to ignore bullying issues. You know, there's the full spectrum there, and I guess it depends mostly on how the school board reacts to these issues and the political pressures they feel and the top-down direction the teachers get. So the church got involved in this in part because of all the rash of reported suicides last fall among high school and college kids who had been bullied. That's
right. And I believe at one of our services, someone got up and said that the son of a friend had just committed suicide, and that was the final straw for me. And right after that, I talked with a number of people, including Beth, in our congregation, and we decided to do something about it.
Wow. Well, thank you. I think actually there was this rash of reported suicides last fall. The thing that the most struck me was not that they occurred, but that they were reported. Because I think they're occurring all the time, but for some reason it became fashionable in the media to report some of them. And so there was a long string of them that were reported suddenly. And then, of course, since then, it's, you know, we moved on to other things, and the media is focused on many other things now. I'd like to know, for both of you, you know, what brought you to this level of activism? You know, most people are not activists, and as you know, straight people, straight allies, I want to know why have you allied yourself with what at least at once was a very unpopular cause, but maybe now it's a little bit easier to be working in the area. But maybe you, Beth, could tell me what, you know, when you were growing up, what did you think about gay and lesbian people, and has that changed over the years for you?
I don't think it's changed a lot over the years, but I've certainly learned much more as I've gotten to know many more gay and lesbian people. A good friend of mine from middle school on through college, after college, came out to me, and it was a little bit of a surprise in that I hadn't put it all together in my own thinking that, yes, okay, there were a lot of signs here, but I hadn't quite put it all together. But as we began to talk and I began to learn more about things that she was experiencing because of her sexual orientation, I began to realize that, my gosh, this is huge. There are a lot of gay and lesbian people. There are a lot of people dealing with these same issues, and it's something that people are going to have to start looking at much more seriously. I've heard people compare activism for LGBTQ rights to the civil rights era and saying this is the civil rights issue of our time, and I certainly see some of that, and it simply seems to me that it's the right thing to do, that as we've said, all people have inherent worth and dignity, and this seems to me to be such an arbitrary way to divide people. And so it's become important to me, and as I've gotten to learn more details of the experiences of more and more friends who are gay and lesbian and their issues in trying to get married and have acceptance from their families of origin and so forth, it's really driven me further into this work, and I'm very, very glad to be doing it.
It sounds like you've gone through an evolution of, similar to what many parents in PFLAG go through. They find out that they may have a gay or lesbian child, and at first they may be shocked by that, or they may think, oh, duh, of course. The response spans the spectrum. But at some point, they almost always become angry that their kid is so maltreated. And that's what moves them to activism. They say, I'm sick and tired of hearing, what people are saying about my kid. They don't know my kid.
Right.
How can they say those terrible things about them?
Exactly.
And so that's what moves them to get more in the public eye and to not just support others, but educate society as a large and become advocates for greater human rights.
Yes, I think that's exactly right.
Have you had a similar experience, Doug? Did you know anyone when you were growing up who was gay or lesbian?
No, absolutely none. At least not. Obviously, some of them were, but nobody was out when I was a kid growing up in the 60s, early 60s. And I personally used all of the language and invective that anti-gay people use now. I didn't feel that I was wrong because it was part of the culture that I grew up with. It wasn't until I was an adult, when I went to college and finally met some people who said, yeah, I'm gay, right out loud, that I had a personal experience saying, well, okay, now you see this gay person, this is a person you like and respect. So what was all that stuff you were thinking about when you were a kid where you call someone a faggot or queer as a weapon? It just doesn't make sense. And I wouldn't say that the transition happened overnight. I think it was a gradual process, so that by the time I had kids, I think I had changed quite a bit, and I hope and I believe that they grew up in a much different environment than I did.
So when you were growing up, I mean, anti-gay invective was just a way to bully people for whatever reason.
That's right.
It wasn't necessarily because they were gay.
Right. I don't think hardly anyone, obviously some people knew about some people, but in general, they were just words you would use, just like you would use racial epithets or any kind of insult. It's particularly effective, I suppose, in a situation where you wanted to challenge another guy's rank or attractiveness to girls, that kind of thing.
It's all about machismo in some
Yeah.
way. Were you involved in bullying? Or I mean, I know from my own personal experience, I was a victim and I was a bully. I mean, a little bit of each at different times of my childhood.
I was in maybe one or two instances, I was picked on by other people. there was a Cub Scout leader who I don't think all his wheels were on the tracks, and he was rather abusive to me. And after I quit, sometime later, we kind of passed each other on the sidewalk, and he called me a quitter, and I called him a faggot, and off we went. And that kind of thing was common.
Right.
So I'd say I was a little bit bullier and a little bit bullied.
Right. But you remember that incident to this day.
Yes.
I mean, over a long period of time. So, so even those little incidents of name calling somehow affect us. They burn into our memory.
That's right. And I think maybe part of my activism now is, I wouldn't call it guilt, but I would say that it is a recalled memory and maybe a rethinking. You can't go back in time and redo those things, but you can control the things you do now.
Right.
So I'm going a little extra step to make up for that.
As an ex-Catholic, I would say I have sins to expiate. So in the Safe Haven, it sounds like this is a new project of the congregation. What sorts of things are being considered to really change, the climate?
Well, the first thing that we've done is to check ourselves. We've conducted religious education classes for all the kids, kindergarten through 8th grade, where we had sessions. For the younger kids, it was reading books by Harvey Fierstein, Tommy DePaola, excellent picture books, and the kids were asked to express what it meant to be different, or what did it mean, how would you treat someone who is different, and would you accept them. For the older kids, we talked a lot about the language that they use and how that might affect the person saying it and the person hearing it. Particularly, I'll give you one example. We had the kids go to 4 corners of the room, represented by the signs: accept, ignore, get help, or talk to the person later. I'm sorry, the first one was to act, to intervene.
Okay.
And when we asked, what do you do when someone says, that's so gay? Almost all of the kids went to the ignore corner of the room. It is so prevalent, pervasive. None of them think of it. I mean, they know the meaning of the word. They know it in its sexual context, but they don't use it in that context. But what they haven't really internalized yet is the fact that if one of their friends or somebody they're interacting with was gay, they might have a different response when they hear that word.
Right, exactly.
So that's one of the things, the internal teaching ourselves, educating ourselves.
So that's teaching kids in the Sunday school,
right?
Within the congregation. And those are kids of all ages? Right.
Kids, this was kindergarten through 8th, and then we didn't have a program for the high school kids, because we don't have that many in our congregation. We're also working with the Fremont Newark PFLAG chapter, participating in events with them. They have their annual barbecue, which we participated in, and we're hoping to do some more public things later in the fall.
Right. I think one thing that's important is community support for the gay-straight alliances in the schools. There are gay-straight alliances in many high schools now, and even middle schools all over the Bay Area. But the health of those clubs depends on individual personalities and whether or not there's really faculty support and so on. So one thing PFLAG does is have at least an annual barbecue to bring them all together, so all the kids can meet each other, the faculty advisors can meet each other, and they can share ideas and things like that, and facilitate communication between them. And also give them a day when they just have a great time.
That's great.
And if I can add one more thing, we do get involved with legislative issues. In some school districts, the school board may be more conservative than in others, and they may not enforce the laws or the spirit of the laws that are intended to protect kids.
Right. You know, I saw recently an excellent example of that in the Fremont School Board meeting. In Fremont, teachers, to use a book in a curriculum, have to get it approved by the school board. So the English teachers wanted to, in the honors English class, study the play Angels in America. But complete chaos erupted at the school board meeting over that because there are gay characters in it. During the course of the meeting, in the public response, there was one kid from the Gay Straight Alliance, a gay kid in the school, who said, "Please, I hear that's so gay all the time. Don't have the board say of this play, that's so gay, therefore we can't study it." But in fact, that's what eventually happened, unfortunately. They didn't allow that play, I think in large part because it had gay characters. So, you know, there's a lot of work to still be done. I want to thank both of you, you know, Beth and Doug, for you know, coming onto the program, and I wish you a lot of luck in your endeavors. I think, you know, you have the potential of making a really big impact out there. And I also want to thank you. Please join us again.